Hey guys, welcome to the Cortex podcast. My name is Bryce, and I'm going to be running you guys through a quick disclaimer. All content on the Cortex podcast is not a substitution for medical advice, and all information is for educational and entertainment purposes only. This information is not a substitution for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Information on this podcast may be out of date, so please consult your primary healthcare provider regarding fitness, diet, or any medical conditions. Any fitness or nutrition programming mentioned should not be tried at home without proper consultation with qualified health professionals. We do not endorse any supplements, medicinal herbs, over-the-counter medicines, illicit drugs, or hormone replacement therapy for unintended purposes or without the consultation of a qualified health professional. That does not include me or Tanner. Enjoy the episode, guys.
Hello and welcome to Cortex. I'm Tanner, and I'm joined by Bryce today. Today we're going to be talking about goal setting, the trends model of behavior change, lifestyle, and a brief overview of nutrition basics. Bryce, why don't you take us away?
Hey guys, so today we're going to start off the podcast with some goal setting. When I take on a new client, I talk about NGT with them. So to give a brief description of each one, N is needs, so what the client is wanting to accomplish with a workout regime, and specifically what they're coming to you for. When you're talking about the next one, it's goals, so specifically nailing down what they're wanting to accomplish and kind of putting that into perspective for them. The next one is time frame, so setting a realistic time frame for them so that way they are able to accomplish their goals and make this a maintainable lifestyle for them. When we're talking about some other ones, we're talking about long-term and short-term goal setting. So it's really important to integrate these aspects into NGT because it makes it more attainable for that client. And it's good because if you have short-term goals, you're able to give yourself rewards and you're able to celebrate little wins throughout the course of the period before your long-term goal deadline or time frame.
Okay, and I'm going to let's run through a quick case study. So
Sure.
if I was your client, let's just go through it. What are some of the questions you'd ask me as your client?
Well, first of all, I would ask you what brings you in today and what made you reach out to me initially.
I feel fat. My belly is big, so I think I'd like to lose weight.
Okay, so how much weight do you want to lose?
Oh, good question. I'm 200 right now, so a guy my size probably probably 60 pounds.
Okay, so what do you think is a realistic time frame for yourself?
Oh, I don't know, like a year for that. 60 pounds in a year, is that realistic?
Yeah, so I would say that you're probably looking at about a pound to pound and a half per week as a maintainable change. So I would say that a year is probably pretty realistic, and I'd say that that's a good time frame for you.
Okay.
Are there any things over the course of the year that you're wanting to lose weight for?
Well, mostly this summer. I think with COVID, I think it'll finally be like a little bit less restrictive. So maybe I can be like looking better for the beach.
Okay, so you're wanting to be able to, go to the park or go to the beach with your friends and be more confident with your shirt off.
Exactly, and maybe like be able to do hiking and different activities without getting out of breath. I went to an ice cave last summer, and I was dying by the time I even got like halfway up the mountain. So being able to fully do that with confidence would be great.
Well, man, I will gladly be able to help you get towards that goal of being able to climb that ice mountain with no issues and to the point where you're confident and on the beach with your friends. Does that sound good?
It sounds good to me. So what
Awesome.
kind of short-term goals should I be setting for myself and you for clients?
So with new clients like yourself, I would say that some short-term goals would be looking at weekly and even monthly. So when you're looking at weekly, I would say for somebody like yourself who's new, I would say look at the amount of workouts you have assigned per week and set a goal for yourself on the weekends to make sure that you're hitting all of those goals and all those workouts. For your monthly, set a goal for the amount of weight you'd like to lose over the course of the month and even monitor your weight weekly. Those are a good place to start, so that we have a good guideline from there.
Okay, and I really like that because I'm kind of a checklist like maniac. I really like checklists, and like I use an app where it can like check off the boxes and like click the circles, and it then goes off the screen. So I actually am really excited about that mode of tracking goals, basically. So I am excited for that.
Yeah, structure is everything, right? If you have a plan, then you can plan to succeed. If you don't plan, you're going to plan to fail.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the trans-theoretical model of behavior change then.
Sure. So when I'm taking on a new client, I go through the trans-theoretical model with them. It's a chart or a graph that shows the different changes that somebody goes through, kind of running through them through the process of contemplation or pre-contemplation, to contemplation, to preparation, to action, to maintenance, and to long-term habits. So it's important to see where a client is at this point in time, so you see where they're starting at, so you know which direction they need to be going forward in. A common issue or a valid concern for people that are new is it's easy to fall out of that routine because you don't have the habits built, and it's easy to relapse and fall back into old habits.
Okay. Yeah, I can relate to that one. I've definitely done that a time or two.
Yeah.
Or like 19 times. So we'll be looking out for that, I think, through this run through.
Yeah, so we'll definitely run through a plan of action this time around, so that way relapse isn't going to be happening. So then that way you're increasing the chance of success.
Perfect. So I think for if we're using the NTG model, I think for probably the next 3 months or so, as we talked about in the first episode, my goal won't actually be the 60 pounds. That is the overall for the year, like we mentioned. Yeah. But I think for the 3 months, it'll be about 20 pounds or so. That'll be about 1.5 pounds per week. So it's pretty realistic. It's staying within a time frame of 3 months, and it's a very measurable goal at the 20 pounds. So to do that, we're going to start the cut at, would you say like 2,200 calories? That'd probably be good.
Yeah. So I remember when we did your calories, your maintenance level was 27. So for the cut, we're going to have you down to 22, getting close to that 3,500 calories per week. So that way you're hitting that pound at least for
and that was
weight
the
loss.
Total daily energy expenditure that you talked about, right?
Yeah, your TDE. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we'll cover that. We kind of covered my why, like why do I want to work out? It's mostly for activity and health reasons. I want a trainer because, especially for someone like me who's had so many issues with actually staying on track, you can actually kind of help me stay on track. And actually the podcast too, a very good accountability partner in a way. And yeah, that we kind of covered the why. It's really important to find your own why though, if you're listening and thinking about making changes. Your changes might not be losing weight, even though that's a very common one. Your why might be something like just being able to run around with your kids, or potentially lifting really heavy weights because it just makes you feel good. And these, like, there are no good or bad whys as long as it's motivating enough to get you there, and you can use discipline and accountability to actually get you there. Because as soon as you get working out and get to that like maintenance phase or long-term habits, like most people will know working out feels really good afterwards, but when you start out, it kind of sucks. It's like the worst drug you could ever have, because like most drugs like make you feel really good when you take it, and then afterwards you feel like absolute poop. Alcohol is a good example, but working out, it's the opposite. You feel like poop, and then you feel a lot better afterwards.
You feel great after,
yeah, you get that high. So I think that's actually a good time to talk about lifestyle habits. What are your kind of thoughts and feelings on that?
So after covering the client's why, so figuring out why they're actually coming to me, like when I spoke with Tanner, he initially said he wanted to lose weight, but then I dug down a little bit more and found out that the real reason was that so he could be more confident on the beach with his friends, and that's so he could do more activities with his friends and family. So once we were able to actually, in a sense, break that down and figure out why he's wanting to come to me, I'll initiate some healthy lifestyle habits that are easy to bring in and that you can add in to be more active throughout the course of the day. So with a new client, some really basic ones to start off with would be like walking 15 to 20 minutes a day to start, listening to a podcast. Well, shameless plug, you can listen to ours.
Yeah, the Flex Cortex on a walk.
Yeah. You could also park further away to get more steps in. So let's say you're going to get groceries, parking a little bit further away, so you're forced to walk closer to the further away from the store and walk back to your vehicle. You'd be surprised how much trying to get little bits of exercise can help with that. And then if you can, gain an activity tracker and setting a step count goal to something realistic for yourself. The one thing with an activity tracker that is really nice is lots of them will actually like buzz and vibrate at you, and if you've been sitting for a long time, they'll actually encourage you to get up and walk around. So it's a nice little reminder to get up and take breaks throughout the day. Also, these breaks will help you be more productive too. It's proven that if you're just sitting there working a sedentary job, the more you're just kind of staring at a screen, you're probably not actually accomplishing that much. So if you actually get up and take more regular breaks, you're going to be feeling more refreshed and more willing to come back and work.
Perfect.
The next one I want to talk about quickly is a water bottle. So most people tend to think that they're getting enough water. So I would highly recommend getting a water bottle with some measurement on it. So then that way you can actually have a better idea of how much water you're getting in per day versus just guessing. Guessing is never really a good way to go about things. So I would get a water bottle and figure out how much water you want to be taking in per day, and then try to keep that as a consistent average. You can also just kind of keep a track of your urine. So if your pee is very yellow, you're probably very dehydrated. Usually, as a good rule, if you're waiting to drink water when you're already thirsty, chances are you're already dehydrated.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. And then for the next one, I would say is everybody has their phones on them, except for Tanner. He's hard to get a hold of sometimes.
Yeah, except me.
Yeah, but yeah, since everybody has their phones on them, I would say that a great way to make sure you're holding yourself accountable is to set your workouts in your schedule and structure that into your day. So that way you're actually going to be getting into the gym, working out, and setting that time aside for yourself where it's more distraction free. I do find that it's pretty easy to push it off and say like, I'm going to work out this day. But if you don't have a specific time, it's easy to push off if stuff come up.
Right. And I will, as a quick side note, just mention for the water. It's really hard, especially in the as a new client or as a personal trainer, to actually find real recommendations on that, because the 8 glasses of water is sort of a myth, not really, but sort of.
I would say with new studies,
really
it's becoming a myth with new studies coming out. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but a good baseline would actually be about 8 glasses or 2 liters for women, and then about 3 liters for men. That could totally change depending on how active you are, or not active, what kind of foods you're eating. If you're eating a lot of foods that are really rich in water, like your vegetables and fruit, your water demands might not be needed. So it's base it off the feel. Just see how you're doing.
Yeah, you also have to keep in account foods that might increase water retention too. So foods that are typically going to be like higher in salt and stuff are going to pull water, right?
Exactly. And then you're going to have really puffy legs and be puffed out. And that's all the YouTube videos you see of those guys who, like, in like 30 minutes they can go from fat to ripped, but really it's actually ripped to fat
just
because
water,
they have a bunch of like salty potato chips, drink a bunch of water, and then they're just water fat. Super common.
But a fun side note for you is that when you're talking about water retention usually gets a bad rep, but water retention is actually good for when you're exercising because it provides more denseness and more lubrication for your muscles and for your joints.
Lubrication is always super important.
Yeah, so people typically tend to think that like, oh, I'm holding a lot of water right now. I mean, it's bad for like bodybuilders, obviously, but if you're like a powerlifter like myself, having that water retention isn't really going to be a bad thing per se.
And like even with bodybuilders, unless you're actively setting up for getting ready for a comp,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's good. Like water retention is good unless you're doing like a photo shoot or
Exactly.
competition.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everybody's coach would have something structured for them as to how much water they should be taking, but obviously you'd be limiting or lowering the amount of water you'd be taking in closer to comp for sure.
I do want it noted though that like although water retention in those cases is fine, uh, medically, if your doctor is like, oh yeah, you have water retention, that can be an indicative of a health condition that we can talk about in a later episode. But just to note that water retention isn't always good, even from a health standpoint. But generally speaking, like it's fine to be retaining water. Like we're mostly water guys.
Yeah, like 70%, right?
Yeah, it's like 60 or 70, depending if you're female or male, just because of the different body densities. But yeah, pretty much that.
For sure. Yeah, so for the next aspect we're going to be covering here is when we jumping into nutrition a little bit now. Again, nutrition needs can vary on medical history and individual lifestyle of that one person. It depends on the kind of work that they're doing or current medical issues that they currently have. So it's always good to consult a dietitian or nutritionist, just because they can give you something more specific and tailored to you, as well as obviously addressing like a GP before you even start a diet plan.
Perfect. And I think I have done that previously. I've talked to both a physician and a registered dietitian kind of about what my macros will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can kind of take us through like what my general nutrition plan will be, very basics of it.
Yeah, so luckily Tanner has already talked to a dietitian, like he said before. So we are talking about his initial cut. So his maintenance level calories right now would be about 2741 is what we got. So for the start of his cut, we're going to be having him at 2241. Just so that way he's in a little bit of a deficit, but still able to maintain good energy levels and still maintain performance in the gym. But that 500 calorie deficit a day ends up being about 3,500 calories over the course of a week, which equates to at least a pound per week, which is kind of what we're wanting to hit at a minimum. When we're breaking down his calories into his macros, we're looking at about 220 carbs, which equates to 880 kcal. We're looking at about 165 for protein, which is 660 kcal, and we're looking at 730 fat, which is 660 kcal. To get a little bit more into depth on the macros, 1 gram of carb is 4 cals, 1 gram of protein is 4 cals, and 1 gram of fat is 9. And then alcohol is technically like a quote-unquote fourth macro, which ends up being about 7 calories per gram. But this is really important to take into account when looking at the macros themselves.
Okay. And like some of you who are a little astute and have listened very closely might be like, oh, didn't you just say that Tanner's weight loss goal is 1.5 per week to 2, and you're only losing 1 pound? Good catch. However, we're planning on doing it through exercise to supplement that. Yeah. And that's only to make the cut more sustainable and also to tie into my goal. I want to be, it's all about activity. So exactly. Cardiovascular and exercise health is super important in that regard. And we might increase the cut later down depending on retention and how easy it is and energy levels, etc.
Yeah, so the 500 calorie deficit right now is strictly looking at the nutrition side of things. We're not even taking into account the calories he's going to be burning per session. So with the extra calories being burned per session as well, I think we should be pretty much dead on to that 1.5.
Yeah, because you don't burn a lot through exercise, but you do still burn some. And it's not totally unrealistic to, especially with intense resistance training, to actually have pretty good calorie burn for quite a while afterwards. And that should be pretty easy to make up that calorie difference.
Yeah, your body's epoch after you work out, you're still burning calories for a while.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the tips and tricks I'm actually going to use to get to that goal and actually have a sustainable cut is there's low fat popcorn you can use, which is basically like calorie free but still makes you feel like you're satiated and full. And
Having
there's
that
actually
snack,
sugar free Jello that you can use too, which is super great for that.
yeah, you're still able to like satisfy that craving in a sense, but you're able to keep it low calories, so that way you're still able to hit your goals.
Exactly. And like it's totally a mechanical thing at that point. Your body knows that it's not really getting nutrition, but your stomach gets a little confused because you have all that mechanical fullness from Jello, which is mostly just water, and popcorn, which again mostly just air, and then some water too. So,
Yeah.
and that's the whole reason why when we talk about calorie dense foods, you want it actually like nutrient dense, because your vegetables are actually pretty non-calorie dense, but you need quite a bit of volume to actually get the macros you need.
Yeah.
So you have like a lot of spinach in your stomach if you're eating salads, that stuff, to actually get to the your macro goals.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like with any of these things, right? The whole point of exercising is to better your life in general. So you should be able to easily maintain these habits. Obviously, once you built that structure and that routine, but none of these things should be more of a stress on you, right? They shouldn't be causing you and providing you more stress than anything. It should be something that you should be able to do and maintain over a long period of time. So that's why it's good to still realize that you can go out and still enjoy outings with friends. Well, not with COVID right now, but
Yeah.
when things were more normal and there's a sense of normalcy in the world, but you're still able to enjoy foods that you like. It's just all about balancing that with a healthy lifestyle.
Perfect. I will cover quickly just some micronutrients to tie in with your nutrition. Micronutrients are still important, but definitely get less of a focus just because it's really easy to get them through whole foods, and you don't really need supplements or anything like that to get them. One of the big ones for mineral is our iron, which is less important for people who are eating adequate amounts of meat or beans or legumes. I think it's legumes. How to say it. I know legumes have it, but I don't know if it's legume or a legume.
I think it's legume.
Legume. All
Yeah.
right. You get to hear our little accent variations.
Legume or legume?
Legume. So you get iron, especially for women too, who or people who menstruate. That you actually lose a lot of blood, which has iron, which can decrease it. And iron in the body plays a role with hemoglobin, so that can actually affect your oxygenation for your cells, because hemoglobin is what carries oxygen from your lungs to your cells for respiratory cell function, basically, or aerobic cell function. So super important for working out too, actually.
Yeah.
Just for that performance.
Yeah, iron's
Another
very
one-
important for iron's very important for
seriously.
women, and for especially like if you're a woman and you're vegan too. That's even more important at that point.
Yeah, you get that double whammy with that. So, and when we talk about, just to mention quickly, just because we are an LGBTQ friendly podcast, when we say woman, we mean female assigned at birth, basically. Like if you're a woman at birth, that's what we're kind of talking about there. So if you're a male now, a trans male, that would still apply to you, just because the genetic factor there.
I didn't actually know that, so that's a good fact.
Yeah, just a fun little tidbit there for you.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, exactly. And speaking of veganism, the B12 is something that is found in a lot of your meats and animal products. But if you're vegan, you can actually supplement this with fortified grains and some non-dairy products like soy milks are usually fortified with B12. So you can still achieve it pretty well. Vitamin C, super easy to get if you have your oranges, your citruses. The only problem is if you're planning on sailing the 7 seas anytime soon,
if you're a
make sure
pirate.
you
Yeah.
pirates, you have to worry about scurvy, so make sure you're bringing along your oranges, canned oranges.
There you go. You know before your
uh,
next trip.
yeah, exactly. You gotta bring it.
You heard it here first.
Finally, well, not finally, but pretty close. Vitamin D, that's a super important one for Canadians, especially because there's something called seasonal affective disorder, um, and they think it's linked to vitamin D deficiency because you're not getting enough sunlight.
Yeah.
So it's really important to either try and get out in the sun for at least 15 minutes a day, of course, using proper sunscreen, SPF protection. Or you can take a supplement, but please consult with your physician or nurse practitioner first. It's generally safe, but again, our medical histories all differ. So yeah, just make sure you're getting that, because that might be why you get kind of more down in the winter months, barring COVID, which has gotten us all down for the last year.
Yeah.
And finally, omega 3s and omega 6 technically, which usually comes from your fish, which you can have anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week. If you are vegan, you can also supplement. And there are foods like tofu and avocados, walnuts, chia seeds that will have it. You'll just have to kind of combo them to get the appropriate amounts of omega 3 and omega 6, which is super important for brain health. And I think you had a fun fact about that too, actually.
Yeah, so
omega-6s.
the omega 3s and 6s, the fatty acids are crucial to joint lubrication, so it's really important with any kind of resistance training that you get an important and a adequate amount of omega 3 and 6 from fish or from some sort of supplementation, obviously, if you're able to have that.
So to really say and to summarize that, just to use proper lubrication, you need to eat the proper amount of omega 3s, and we know the importance of lubrication.
Yeah, it's very important, so it's good.
Exactly. Okay, and just to note, what's really important here is that we have a well-balanced diet over supplements. Supplements can be sometimes okay. Talk to your doctor before taking any supplements, especially if you're going for any kind of surgery. Supplements can actually interfere with the anesthetics and other medications you might be on. So just be sure to share the herbal medicines, supplements, over-the-counter medications you're taking with your health professional and even your personal trainer, just because some of those actually will apply to their training program too, because it can be important, depending.
Yeah, I would say that an important note or a tidbit would be like what he'd mentioned before. It's important to know any kind of prescribed medication that you're on when we take on a new client, as well as like a doctor's note if need be, and taking note of what supplements they're taking as well. One thing about people that are vegan is there is a natural amount of creatine that you get from meat. So if you're not getting that creatine from meat, you need to be getting that creatine from another source. So that's usually an essential vitamin or mineral that you need to be addressing, and still making sure you're getting that in somehow.
Creatine's amino acid, right?
Yeah. Sorry, amino acid. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
comes down in the body. It's in the form of PCR, so phosphocreatine.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that was pretty much the episode. If you guys have any questions or comments, please feel free to let us know on our Facebook page or Instagram. We will be trying to post there pretty regularly and try and interact with you guys. If you're looking to listen to the podcast in other forms, we are on Spotify, TuneIn, iHeart. We should be on Google Podcasts later on this week, maybe even later today, including iTunes too, actually. So we included the Apple products because we like to be inclusive.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah, and then obviously the Facebook page and our Instagram would be probably the best way to contact us in regards to any content coming up. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Perfect. And if you do feel like going to YouTube, you can also listen to our podcast there. We will have some videos that accompany the podcast sometimes, depending. Especially next week, we might end up doing a assessment video for what different functional body movements a certified personal trainer would look for, just to give you an example. So
yeah, sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening, and we will see you again on Saturday These bi-weekly episodes won't be a permanent thing. They'll just be for probably the next couple weeks.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of go from there and then try and hit the weekly every Saturday.
Yeah, the weekly schedule, for sure.
Perfect. Okay, see you guys next time.
Thank you.